I'll now move on to introducing our next couple of presenters. And these two are also a very special individual that I had the pleasure of working with and knowing personally. Bruno Aziza is a data and analytics industry veteran. He pioneered BI at the French company called Business Objects, if you remember them, all the way through the acquisition by SAP, moved on to work with Microsoft, Oracle, Google, to name a few. And if you've not really listened to one of Bruno's podcasts, then I think you're really missing out. One of the key takeaway for me in Bruno's podcast is how he's often actually with the customer, always talking about ROI and actual impact of data and analytics, and that's really great and refreshing because he's not just talking about his own ideas in his mind. He actually brings it back to how customer using his products are delivering value. So check those out if you've not done so yet. And today is going to follow on that trend, coming to talk to you at Entropy with Sebastien Rozanes, who is the Global Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Carrefour, one of France's largest retailer. After a long international career in consulting and data tech, Sebastien has taken on the challenge of trying to take Carrefour's data platform to new heights. And together with Bruno today, they're going to talk to you about a trendy trend, if I can say, around Gen AI and actually how AI can have tangible impact for businesses. So thank you again so much to you two for taking the time to talk to our audience today. And the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for the intro. We're going from one Sebastien to the next. I guess I'm just sitting between the two of you. So thanks for the great intro. And I'm assuming you could see my slides. If not, let me know. I'm going to proceed with this because I know we've got a small amount of time to cover a lot today. So you'll hear from myself in the very beginning. I'm going to take maybe 3-4 minutes to get us introduced, and then as Sebastien explained, Sebastien here on the Carrefour side is really the main show of this session. We want to get straight to really what it takes to get real world Gen AI started in the enterprise. Now, of course, everybody knows Carrefour here. It's the 8th largest retailer in the world. It's got almost 14,000 stores across 30 countries. But what we're going to talk about is how even a large company like this can move at a very high speed to get results. And we know that many of you are wondering, how do I get there as fast as I can? And how does the trend of governance and observability connect to the importance of deploying these applications? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We really have 3 goals. You can see here, when you think about Gen AI, what are the key frameworks you can use and apply? And then we'll take those frameworks and then turn them into real life examples for you. So it's interesting listening to Colin, because a lot of what we're going to talk about is how do you create this mindset around data products. And so when you think about Gen AI, observation has been that there's a lot of new, but there's actually a lot of old as well. There are many things that actually have not changed. And so I want to start with that because I think it would ground us into what we mean about where the opportunity is at. Well, so what's old? What's old is that nothing has changed about your needs. If you're an enterprise, if you're a medium business today, when you think about the opportunity of building data products, powering them with AI, you still need to take care of these key use cases, accelerating your path to getting your products live, ability to reimagine your customer experience, modernize business operations, protect your data, and then, of course, innovate in this very highly distributed world of many data sources, many locations, many people, many use cases. And the reality of our world is that it's very complex. This is the landscape of data solutions in 2023. I'm sure there's going to be an even more complicated one coming out next year. There's about 1,400 solutions here that you have to think about when you build your data stack. Now, I remember over 10 years ago when I was running one of my startups, this landscape looked very confusing back then, and I was really happy to find my logo there. But the reality is this world only continues to get more and more complicated. And that's why when you're thinking about new opportunities and your data architecture, it's difficult to come up with a typical data architecture diagram, but I can tell you that many of you explain that it feels like this. And so the challenge here is, how do you move at this modern speed when you're starting with something like this? And there's additional pressure you are getting today from your management who are telling you, you know what, we need to get ready. We need to compete in the Gen AI world. How we're going to do that? And this is how that feels, where you know you want to move, but the reality is that it's about to put a lot of pressure on your data infrastructure. In fact, the challenge and the opportunity of Gen AI is that it's going to make your data available to many more people that are going to be able to interface with it, but it's also potentially exposing issues you might have in your stack if you haven't taken care of the most important bits of it, which is observability, governance, structure, and security around your data. So that's what we know. That's what's kind of old. The new bit of it is a lot of what Colin talked about earlier, is this idea that your teams now are transforming from this old world where you're using data and it was a liability. And it was all about the cost of storage. And it was all about who should access it and how do we protect this data? How do we filter it down so people get the speed of response? And so that's how we started data marts. And that's how we started this kind of this treadmill and this factory line, if you will, for making data accessible and usable by people. And what's happening now in 2023 is that you have the opportunity of becoming data product leaders, where your products are what's driving bottom line results for your organization. Now, when you think about which are the examples in the market that allow you to do that, of course, from our perspective, where we think we can help on the Google side is to think about what is the best data product that we know in the market. And of course, we'll start with google.com because it's a very easy to understand product. It's very usable. It doesn't require any training. Anyone can interface with it. It's a search bar. It could be a Gen AI chatbot if you wanted. But behind that is the complexity I described earlier. Data in real time, data that's highly distributed, data which volume you don't control. And so having a mindset around building data products is going to be important as you move forward, as you become not just simply data leaders, but data product leaders. So that's a lot of what we think about as considerations. But since we've got a lot of French people here, I'm French, Sebastien's French, the Sebastien before was French, and Siffle is a French company, I thought I'd bring some French philosophy to you because Voltaire is one of my heroes. And he used to say, it's not about the answers, it's about the questions. So when you're thinking about building data products and getting live with Gen AI, what are the key important questions you need to ask? And we believe there's at least 3 of them. The first one is, when you look at your team today, are you organized correctly to take advantage of this new trend? Second, how do you budget? Sebastien today is going to talk about how he thinks about his budget, how he got to live, and how he took account his current situation, his current budget. And then finally, do you have a framework to prioritize and focus your resources on what matters the most consistently? And we'll talk a little bit about the diagram between feasibility and effort. Before we get started with question number 1, I want to touch a little bit on productivity, because you're going to read a lot about how Gen AI is a powerful level of performance. And it's very true. The good news here is when people do work around product innovation, 90% of people using Gen AI applications see a performance lift of at least 40%. The gotchas, though, is that when you work in very specific areas, so for instance, problem solving, it has this tendency of reducing you down to maybe conformity, and in fact can get you worse results. And so when you think about Gen AI and the bottom line value to your people, take this into consideration. What this piece of research here from the Boston Consulting Group have found is actually we tend to mistrust the technology when it actually provides the most value, and we tend to trust it too much when it actually isn't competent. And so when you think about productivity and Gen AI for your people, take these 2 things into consideration. I think you'll get access to the deck so you can get the details of the research. So let's touch on first one, team. And Colin touched a little bit on this. What we've discovered is you need a team of at least these 5 kind of jobs. Data product manager. These are the people that own the data from acquisition to activation. And you've got a great post here from Andreessen Horowitz on what it takes to be a great product manager. Program managers are people that keep your job in line, making sure that it delivers on time. UX leaders are people that make sure that your applications are actually interfaces people can use, and the best UI is typically no UI. So you need people like this to help you understand that. And of course, your data engineers. And finally, as Sebastian's going to talk about, the role of the chief data officer. The second item you'll have to consider is your budget. Luckily, there's a lot of resources that help you with that. And you could see that this post actually was very popular on my LinkedIn profile. But McKinsey's done a ton of research on identifying, you got 3 types of profiles. You can take models or you can make them, and the cost could be drastically different. And then finally, you're going to be tempted to go after a lot of use cases. Sebastian's going to help us here think about how they prioritize use cases. According to research, there's at least 63 use cases you could identify across your company just like that. But the reality is that the value typically comes only from 4 types of areas: customer operations, marketing and sales, software engineering, research and development. So these 4 areas are 75% of value with Gen AI. So important consideration. In my CarCast, which I do every weekend, you'll find the link here. We break down some of the frameworks that customers use in order to prioritize that. And so I've kind of shared with you as my last slide before I hand over to Sebastien, the way we see customers think about prioritization of Gen AI applications is across this acronym: multimodal interaction, interfacing and input and output, data across text, images is becoming really important. You can see certainly a lot of the technology is evolving to that. Trustability, having high data quality, high data completeness is extremely important. Contextual, of course, you want to be sure that you're conversing with these applications. Applied, I often joke that artificial intelligence, AI, stands for applied and invisible. That's how you know that it actually works. It doesn't take you out of your day, kind of like the nirvana, what Colin described earlier, this habitual level. You want to make sure that's integrated into work processes. And of course, the gotchas of all these models, how recent are they? You know, it's not useful if you get results that are giving you information that's 2 years old. And so these kind of 5 letters is what typically customers use to rank those use cases and decide the type of technology they adopt. So that's for the framework. Now what we're going to switch is that, okay, so if you think about these frameworks, how do you apply it in real life into a exact scenario, a live model at Carrefour? So Sebastien, I'm going to put myself to mute and I'm going to let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bruno. It's always very tough to go behind you, but you set the scene very, very well on how to get started. And I hope to give you like a real life story with the good things and the bad things about starting in Gen AI. We started the journey about 10 months ago now, very, very early on versus our competitors. And we have a bit of feedback and we learned some stuff, hopefully, and maybe will help you also in your organization to get started. And why it's particularly interesting, in my view, is also because when you're Carrefour, you're huge. It's 400,000 employees. Like, just to give you a few numbers, it's a huge organization with a lot of data. It's a very established organization. So we are definitely not a startup. So starting to innovate is always challenging. So in this environment, we've put data and AI at the core of the organization for a few years. We've made a huge investment to put data available, make it available in the data lake, to start governing it so that it's more usable by the business. And we are not newbies to AI. So when we started investing in artificial intelligence, we started to frame a little bit this framework, kind of a strategic framework of how we sort out the opportunities around AI and digital. And as you can see here, you will recognize a number of the use cases of a typical retailer. And then we started asking ourselves, okay, we've been very well established with data analytics, AI, and we've really started to frame the use cases. But then Gen AI hits the ground in November last year with the launch of like a public launch of ChatGPT, and then it started to reignite this opportunity inside Carrefour. And then we started to think how can we apply it and where is it going to play in our world? And we figured out that where Gen AI can have the most impact is really around simplifying and automating, on eliminating the low-value task, bringing natural language to make everything very simple and much more transparent in big organizations like Carrefour. And two, really try to put that very rapidly in front of customers to have a nice, engaging customer experience and go much more into personalization, thanks to being able to generate content that will really please and delight the customer. And the question I always get is, how do you actually get started? And what we decided to do is actually not to start with my team, not to start with the data scientists. We actually refused to talk to them, and we went directly to go to the business users, to the business leaders in the organization, to figure out what they think they could do with the technology, and not what the technologists think they could do with technology. So to do that, we basically made a 5-minute demonstration of ChatGPT for those who had never actually seen the solution. And very rapidly, surprisingly, it sparked a lot of ideas. And people thought, how about I apply that in my procurement process? How about I apply that in my marketing production every day? And how about I limit this task and I actually enable to refocus my team on new activities that will be much more value-adding for my team? So we had this amazing creation of 60 use cases, and we started to think, okay, guys, it's great to have all these ideas, but let's try to figure out a framework to start allocating our effort properly, because there are just too many opportunities on the table today. And we started to figure out that there were kind of 3 categories of use cases that we could tackle. Some of them were basically putting GenAI at the core of the enterprise processes, at the core of the production of documents, slides, Excel spreadsheet, whatever technology you use, taking meeting notes on behalf of the team. And then here, very rapidly, we figured out, it was like January last year when we delivered this, that we should not focus any time on this, because it would come to us magically. And actually, the prediction was true, because over the last couple of months, you've seen, Microsoft and Google, naming only these two, just showcasing what you can do now with, for example, Duet AI with Google, in integrating into the Google Suite. And we dedicated really 5% of our time to this, to just track and make sure it will land in our pocket when it was mature. The second aspect was really the thing that would be really transformational, kind of the unicorns that could yield a competitive advantage, where we had very retail-specific use cases that could be really transformative. And here we said, there are many gimmicks, many ideas that came, and we wanted to be really narrowed and focused on 2-3 opportunities that could be really giving us a step up, really being transformational. And then you had these big pockets of GenAI use cases, not very specific to our industry, but that could really radically transform a single function, marketing. When you think of, and I'll show an example around marketing production that is a heavy and very expensive aspect of being a retailer today. Client servicing, how do you make, use the chatbot feature of a ChatGPT to really make a much more engaging customer experience? How do we speed up, as you mentioned, Bruno, the software development, producing code with generative AI, etc. And here, this is where we decided to focus most of our time. And in the end, we had all of these use cases. We sort them out into buckets, into domains of applications. And we narrowed down to approximately 30 that we estimated in terms of feasibility, complexity, and we plotted that basically on a very traditional matrix to figure out where do we want to go in terms of value, which use cases can really help us optimize our processes, improve the customer experience, has a really splash impact on the industry to show and showcase that Carrefour was top of the industry on GenAI. And the horizontal axis is really around, okay, it's great to have all of that, but do we actually have the data available to get started? We didn't want to go and start, having to handle all of the mess of putting the data available that was missing. Where can we be fast to market? Where can we have GenAI can be really a notch faster, a notch much better than what we can do with any other technology? And that's how we ended up putting all these use cases, on a page. and allocating the kind of a score. And we decided to go and experiment on 3 of them. And I will rapidly show you 3 examples, real life, where we applied generative AI and that are actually already starting to deliver some value to us. The first one is what we call the marketing studio that we developed together with Google. It's game changing. It's a game changer for the industry as a whole. Why? Is because we created and just to give you an idea, it's a 5-week process to get to an MVP that was actually used and we're starting to producing marketing assets. What the marketing studio is basically our own agency to produce ads, whether they are ads that we can put in our catalog, ads that we can put into our Twitter, our Facebook account, our emailing, and it generates both the text and the images that goes with the text. And what's amazing about that is that you can go ultra personalized with the marketing studio. Why? Is because you are able at a very cheap cost to generate very customized content that we're really pleased to a micro segment and adapt the advertising or adapt the promotion. Just to give you an example, you can imagine creating an advertising for an organic orange juice with the Carrefour brand, for example. And this exact same product can tackle 2 segments, can tackle, for example, an athlete who looks for the orange juice to get energy, vitamin C. And what the Carrefour Marketing Studio does, it generates not only the text, but also the image. And you see the product. We basically loaded the images of our image bank of our product into the generative AI system. And we were able to produce an advertising with a picture of some of the orange juice put into the context of, for example, a track field next to an athlete. And the exact same product can be showcased to a family on a table on a Sunday morning for brunch. And we got that. That's just 2 examples. You can imagine the level of specialization you can have when you understand your customer. When you are Carrefour, you know what they are buying. It's very granular. Your knowledge of the customer. You can imagine the level of granularity you can get into the specificity of the campaigns you can deliver to your customers with that. And it's game changer for us, but also I think it's going to be a game changer for the entire advertising industry because we kind of created that ourselves. But basically, if we were not creating that ourselves, we would have expected Publicis, our main partner on advertising, to do that because the world will never be like before with GenAI. All of this ultra personalization will have to be automated. You can't do that, with a manual shooting, with somebody on taking pictures, etc. That's the first example, touching our internal functions. A second example touching our customers is that we within same time frame, 5 to 6 weeks of development, we put into production what we call Opla, which is our generative AI-based chatbot. Totally integrated to our website in France today, that enables the customer to discuss with the chatbot. And instead of looking for products, you look for recipes. And you start saying, okay, I have a family of 4, and I want to eat 4 dinners for 50 euros maximum. What can you recommend? And by the way, we are vegan, and one of us, for example, doesn't eat dairy in the morning because it doesn't feel good, when he hit that the day before. And you can put all these constraints and having a conversation, and the generative AI model can generate a number of recipes and then connect these recipes to ingredients. And then you start shopping for ingredients by looking for recipes and not looking for the product per se.
Sebastien,
so what's amazing is that...
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes, absolutely.
This product is live on your site today, right? Anyone listening to us can go and test it.
Yeah, everybody can go. As long as you go on carrefour.fr, you can go and click on the small icon. You see the small egg on the top left. It's Opla. That's the name of this little character.
Yeah.
And you can start adding things to your cart. And what's amazing is it's a thin layer on top of the website, which that we didn't change the backbone. We didn't change the search engine. What Opla does, with an API, it interrogates the search engine of Carrefour and looks for the products and will propose you a list of products that will meet your ingredient you need in the recipe. Very simply.
When you deploy this, you use kind of a MVP methodology to launch it and get feedback on it. What were the considerations around governance and data quality around it? Like, what did you learn as you were kind of putting the product, if you will, in front of customers?
Yeah, that the best way to actually figure out whether the thing works is to put it in front of customers, and we learn it the good way and the hard way. Stuff like, some of our customers based in France started to discuss with Applied English, and it worked very well because guess what? The generative AI algorithm behind it is fully fluent in English. And then when we started to interrogate, for example, the database, we figured out that our search engine didn't know what sugar is. He knows what sucre is in France, but the translation in English, sugar, didn't exist in our database. So we needed to actually have our database learn English, because otherwise it would return, actually, I can't find sugar in the data in your product list. So it helped us figure out also that some of the products that were recommended by the recipe were not properly were not using the exact same word in French and in our database. So we started to build a kind of a list of synonyms to some of the products we had in our database, so that it could connect the recipe better to the product database that we had. So you learn by doing, by rapidly delivering. You learn that people don't speak. Not everybody living in France starts to speak French naturally with this, and you start to learn that sometimes in a recipe a product can be called differently than on the product label. So all of these things triggered work for our data governance teams to figure out how we make this data available and enrich the product data that we had on our website. So that's the second example, totally customer facing. Again, 5 to 6 weeks to get started, and then iteration with the customers. And what's amazing is that it's creating like a lot of products are going to the cart very quickly. And for those of you on the show who are also retailers, you know that the time your customers take to put a product to basket is directly correlated with whether they will buy or not. Because guess what? For example, for a grocery shopper like us, a lot of people take hours to fill out their first basket. But when you help them filling their basket very quickly, they go and buy very quickly as well, and you convert the basket. And then to conclude, the last example is more kind of applied to our own data intelligence inside the house. We call it the data supermarket. So basically, we created, to govern our data, we created a supermarket to expose our data to our teams, also to our external partners, because we are monetizing the data to CPG companies who are buying the data from Carrefour to do their own analysis. And we are working right now on building a conversational agent to be able to look for data very simply. Look for, I want to know what is the turnover for a given store, and have a very natural interface to do that, to really have basically a data analyst in your pocket, and instead of having a human in front of you. And to do that, again, very quickly, to get started, we had a hackathon organized by our analytics factory, which is basically our analytics teams, to figure out what ideas we could do around Gen AI. And one of them was around what we call the Sasha chatbot, which is this chatbot that is starting today. It's really embryonic at this stage, but to create an interface so that all of our data can serve everyone in the organization without having a data expert from our teams on the phone or on the chat, manually doing that with the business users. And it's high potential for us, because one of the main hurdles to addition of data in organization is because it's difficult to find, it's difficult to understand, and it's very time consuming. So as soon as you start having access to all the data and you are comfortable with the description, with the business rule that was used to calculate the KPI, because it's easy for you to find it, then you start being more data driven. So to transform your organization, I think it's a great asset that is quite easy to deploy on top of any kind of data lake to start putting intelligence behind the data that we all own in our organizations.
That's excellent. And, you all know that we could be talking for hours here. So this is just a small taste of all the learnings that we have. I want to encourage you, of course, to reach out to Sebastien if you have any questions. I want to encourage you to go out and use that Hopla application, because you'll be able to experience how quickly his team has deployed the solution. And if there's anything I can do to help you, of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then follow the CarCast that we do on the weekly basis to share with you insights. We'd love to hear back from you. I don't think we have time for a Q&A because we have, in fact, 30 seconds, and Sebastien has to catch a flight. And so we can't stay over. But we hope that this was useful to all of you, and we can't wait to hear back from you in the community on feedback. Thank you so much, Seb.
Thank you very much. And don't hesitate to connect on LinkedIn and ask questions. We'll be super happy to continue the conversation with all of you guys.